Hello, my name is Ahmed Alarian, and today I'll be presenting my final project about 3D printing. Initially introduced to the world in 1984, inventor of the 3D printer Charles Hull used a form of printing called stereolithography, which uses UV lasers and liquid photopolymers to create a tangible object layer by layer. This process of manufacturing is called additive technology. Now, why I mention this is because 3D printing has really evolved the way we manufacture things and the way we create things, kind of like the internet in a way. It was first introduced to create prototype parts for certain science projects and researches. So rather than creating a part and putting upfront money and investments to create that part to see if it will work, you could just create a part right there and then and see if it works without any upfront investments. This really helped the science world in constantly creating prototypes to better fit their models and make their models more efficient in a shorter amount of time and shorter design cycle. But to fully understand 3D printing's disruptive power today, we need to understand how manufacture is built today. Most of manufacturing process today include these three manufacturing processes: subtractive, forming, and casting. Well, subtractive and forming and casting are very efficient today at creating what we want. They do create a lot of waste. And this is what I feel is better and will make 3D printing a much more efficient solution than that. As you can see in this chart, that formative and subtractive do really take a lot of waste. By if it's formative, if it's forcing objects to change its shape using big loads, or if it's subtractive by chipping away at something, there are a lot of waste being created, while additive only creates if needed. And it is seen that 3D printers do have little to no waste when compared to subtractive, formative, and casting manufacturers. Now, what are the pros and cons of 3D print? We can see in pros that we have a lot of medical capabilities and we can really reduce on labor costs. Some 3D printers like the Denise is this robot that builds its own parts and can self-sustain itself without any human intervention. So in the future, we hope of creating mass products like cars, from start to end without involving a human's hands on. We also have the pro of customization and fitting everything to people's needs. On the con side, though, because it is an early innovation, our print speed is very low, and it takes long times. Also, we're still behind on the material process, where we've seen different materials react differently and have different speeds based on what are they trying to build. So it's easier to 3D print liquid-based polymer than it is to 3D print metal, for example, because metal has a higher melting point. So it takes longer to print and melt and cool down. Now, we also see on the con side that it says not always easy to use. This I find interesting because maybe it might be hard now for most people to go on SolidWorks, CAD, even though there are a lot of users. For the average human being, if you put them in front of one of those 3D design softwares, it's very hard for them to navigate. But I feel if 3D printing is introducing itself into our society more and becoming more disruptive day by day, there'll be courses given in high school and maybe even middle school, like they are now with programming languages and animation languages and photo editing languages. This will see a huge change in the whole world through 3D printing by giving people that education and opening their minds on a blank canvas wherever they can design whatever they want. They can actually put it to use and constantly involve their ideas and bring them into the world as tangible objects. Another way I believe that 3D printing uh, will disrupt is the way we buy stuff. So, for example, rather than waiting for Amazon to ship me my iPhone case, I can buy my iPhone case and get it and and print it at home if I have a 3D printer at home, which will take less than 2 hours in today's world. This chart really explains what that is of changing the market in terms of selling. Now you have on the far left the 3D design you could create or someone creates, which is then placed in an online store that could be accessed later by a mobile or laptop. And once bought, that file is taken from the cloud, sent to a 3D printer, and right there start printing. I believe if this was to happen, it would really revolutionize the way we buy and sell things, and revolution and the idea that you can turn virtual design to an object within hours of its inception is remarkable. And the constant creation of these models and these designs will allow the world to always be creating. And this will help the world in the way it thinks, in the way it approaches stuff. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. These are some of the impacts 3D printing has caused today, and we will look at them one by one and try to analyze how 3D printing has become a disruptive innovation in other markets. Now, I was seriously blown away when I heard this example and the heights of intelligence 3D printing has reached. On the right there, you see little Joseph. Joseph was born with a broken heart, and actually his heart would have not have survived his growing process. He had a deficient heart that would see to future complications and maybe even deadly ones. While this disease might be rare, it is still common among young children being born today. When Jacob's mother took him to the hospital to check on his heart, Dr. Anagistopoulos of the American Family Children's Hospital sought to a way to help, and that way was 3D printing. He talked to Joseph's mom about the complications of his heart and how his heart will not be able to support his body as he grew old, and suggested a solution. His solution was to 3D scan his heart and print one based on it. And as you can see on the left, they spent months scanning Joseph's heart from every ventricle to every cell to make him a perfect heart. Later, Dr. Anagistopoulos performed a 10-hour operation on Joseph to replace his heart with the 3D printed one, and it was successful. This meant that Joseph could live all his life without having any other heart complications throughout. This is amazing, the technology we're looking at today. With all the organ transplants we need on a daily basis, from all the kidney failures, heart failures, and liver failures, we see an example like this where some sort of technology we discovered was used to help humanity survive, basically. This is a great example for health. Now there are much more bigger research that are taking place. Actually, they're looking at 3D printing organs using a human's own cells, and this can be seen here in this image. Now on the left we see a 3D printed ear also, and on the right we see a little girl with a 3D printed prosthetic. Now again, this is where 3D printing's properties has its positive effects, and this is customization. Health researchers today are using humans' own cells to create organs they might need, and they're customizable based on your own DNA, so your body cannot reject it. This is an amazing discovery, And while yet it's still a